Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Hey Now podcast. I'm Dave Sims with my sons, Jarrett and Jordy. Glad to have you with us. And on our program today, we've got Ryan Ruocco, a young sportscaster I've known for 25 years when he was back in college in Fordham. And he's doing a great job at the Yes Network and ESPN, covers WNBA, and also backs up on Yankee telecast. Guys, let's kick a couple of things around in baseball. I can tell you, as a Seattle Mariners broadcaster, I think that the Mariners, with a couple of moves at the trade deadline, really got energized with the addition of Justin Turner, Randy Arozarena. You got Victor Robles had been picked up a little while ago. Those three guys bringing a lot of energy to the ball club, which could really use it. Hitting just so at the worst batting average in Major League Baseball, but the number one run prevention numbers, number 1, 2, or 3 in ERA. So I think that was a big boost. And then another thing I wanted to maybe kick around with you guys, shift away from baseball, just a quick tie-in to the Olympics. Simone Biles getting it done, but there was a mini controversy going in. Was Michaela Skinner had suggested that outside of Biles, the other young ladies who were making a team weren't working quite as hard as far as she could tell. And I was just wondering how that set with you guys when it didn't create a whole lot of conflict, but it was just interesting when you talk about teammates getting after each other.
In terms of this situation, I didn't seem to have an issue with it. I get why Simone and the girls on the team felt slighted, and it seems like they used that as motivation to perform in Paris. So good for them. And it seems like if there was any friendship that was there between those ladies, then that is no longer. But in terms of athletes giving their honest opinions about each other, I like to see it. So she voiced her opinion. Obviously, the girls on the team this year disagreed, and it's entertainment for all of us. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out.
It makes you remember the Scotty and MJ, their parting of the ways and the hard feelings they had, Kobe and Shaq, Isaiah Thomas and not being on the dream team.
Well, I think today's athlete, today's media culture, I just think it's just so different. And I think it was a lot more petty. Guys from that older generation might have been more petty than folks today, but you see it where you can have super duos, super teams. It can blow up because people are human. And famously, Scotty and MJ, that was more after their playing career versus like guys who, as contemporaries during the '92 Dream Team, where Isaiah got left off the team because of Michael. But I think it makes it more interesting to watch.
It's all good for conversation. I mean, the Scotty thing is weird though. I mean, I get The Last Dance. It didn't paint the best portrait of him in that last season, with his injury and holding out for the new contract. But it's really weird, all this stuff. Like the last couple of years, his comments in the media towards MJ, a lot of untruths being spoken, a lot of hate, a lot of unjust hate. I feel like.
Sounds like a lot of this stuff, just let it go. Move the heck on. My goodness gracious. All right. That's our opening short take here. Ryan Ruocco, our guest this week on the podcast. I think you'll enjoy this conversation. Bright young sportscaster. Some interesting stories that we had with him. We are thrilled to have a young man on that I've known for a while. Ryan Ruocco's had massive success. Yes Network, ESPN. He works the Brooklyn Nets games. He does women's college basketball, and had the R2C2 podcast with CC Sabathia that had a very nice run and inspired a whole bunch of other athletes to get involved into the genre. And we speak to Ryan. He's in Kansas City. I hope you didn't overstuff yourself on barbecue.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I haven't had any yet. It's coming though, Dave.
All right. Good to see you, man. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. It's so good to see you. Good to see you, Jared. I'm so happy to be with you guys. I was going to text you this, and then once I knew I was coming on the podcast, I was like, I'm going to save it for this.
Okay.
I got to fulfill a bucket list item for me, which was giving the commencement address at my high school.
Wow.
My high school meant a lot to me, and our Hackley in Tarrytown in New York.
Are you at the Hackley? Jared went to.
I'm a Riverdale lifer, my
Really?
friend.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, that's so funny. That's so funny. So yeah, so we, I competed against you in sports all the time.
Yep. Yep.
In one of the things I talked about in my commencement address is I was kind of talking about how I had to follow my intuition, my gut, rather than my rational mind when I went to Fordham, and how ironic it was because the greatest thing that ever happened for my career was going to Fordham. And in it, I mentioned you, Dave, as one of the people who I was learning from directly, and the impact that had on me, and just the experience for me at 19 years old to be learning from you and from the other people who come in and do workshops, Mike Breen and Ian Eagle and Gary Cohen and Michael Kay, who I developed a relationship with through Yes, but the value of that. And I literally just the other day, so my first workshop ever, I don't know if you know this, Jared, but my first workshop ever was with Dave, and it was freshman. It was sophomore year for me, but my first year.
Oh, wow, I thought you were junior or senior.
Yeah,
Holy mackerel! I'm
yeah,
even more impressed now.
Yeah,
oh
it was,
my goodness!
It was sophomore year, and you told us something I never forgot that I used the other day again. And I learned many things from you and you listening to my tapes throughout the years as well. But you told us, hey, at some point, you are going to lose a job or not get a job that your work is deserving of or better than the candidate that got it or whatever the case may be. And the key is understanding truly that it is not about you and your work. There are so many other reasons that go into this. And as long as you can maintain your confidence when those things happen, you're going to be okay. So don't let it shake your confidence. And I always think about that. And it's something that I shared with someone else recently who was going through a kind of a tough break about, hey, okay, that can happen. But just remember what Dave said, like that's going to happen. That's about the business. That's not about you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So I'm listening to this tape. I was like, dude, you got it, man. You got it. This is tremendous. So you were a sophomore. So
yeah,
I thought that was tremendous. And what it was Bob Aarons, who ran your station, ran WFEV. He would have these announcers up. And I must have done that for 5 or 6 years. And you had a good crew. I mean, Mike Yam goes on to some really big things, NFL Network among them, right?
Yep.
You got yourself. You got Justin Shackle's doing some Yankee stuff right now. And matter of fact, you and Shackle were doing in stadium like pregame stuff, right?
Yep. And Justin I literally just got breakfast with Justin before. To this day, he's one of my best friends. My 3 years at Fordham overlap with him. You also, I don't know if you remember two of our other closest friends who were part of our years as well, but Lou Baracelli, who now runs PR for MLB Network.
Nice.
And then Bobby Coyle, who now is one of the head radio sales guys for Odyssey and sells the Yankees and Mets and just kills it in that field and is one of my best friends to this day too. But so we all, are in different areas of the business, but, all have maintained careers in sports after that.
So let me ask you this. So you get out of Fordham. Well, give me the beginnings there of your career when you started, getting some time and doing, beyond Fordham stuff you're doing over the air or over cable and whatnot.
Yeah. Dave, were you a judge on the Marty Glickman Award?
A couple of years, yeah.
Yeah. So when we used to have the most prestigious award that we gave out was the Marty Glickman Award, which was for our best, play-by-play performer. And our judges were incredibly accomplished, acclaimed people like you, Dave, like Mike Breen, and one of the people who was a judge for years, including when I was there, was Pete Silverman.
Oh yeah, sure.
You remember Pete? Yeah.
I worked with him at the Garden at MSG Network. Sure.
Yep. And then he went on to ESPN Radio in New York, and was our executive producer there. And he had heard my work as a junior and as a senior, and he was like, "I want to hire you right away to do updates." So I had met with through a friend, a woman named Jackie Harris, who worked at William Morris, which is now William Morris Endeavor, and through Clark Judge, who covered the NFL for years for CBS.
Remember that name, yeah.
Clark, yeah. and he had introduced me to Jackie and sent her my tape. And so I went to meet with Jackie, and I thought I was just kind of getting advice. And then she offered to sign me. I was like, okay, amazing. I have this agent in senior year of college. This is incredible.
You
And
know it.
and at the same time, Pete is saying, hey, I want to bring you in. And I'm thinking, but I want to do play by play. Like, I don't want to do updates. Like, I want to do play by play. I'll go anywhere in the country. I don't care. And Jackie was like, trust me, get your foot in the door here. You're going to be on the air in New York and watch what happens. And so basically, I did 3 months of just kind of like fill in update shifts towards the end of the summer after my senior year of college. So that was like, it was like August '08 or September '08 when I started doing some updates. Kind of turned that into some more regular update shifts, turned that into occasionally like fill in side kicking with Warner Wolf on the weekends.
Wow.
Yeah, and then turned that into
Let's go to videotape.
exactly random hosting. All of a sudden, I was hosting
Yeah.
random shows. Then I got my own 5 a.m. show thanks to David Roberts, who is now my big boss
Yeah,
overseeing
but up in
basketball
Bristol,
at
right?
ESPN,
Yeah.
on TV. And so kind of just stacked one thing after another. And then as that was happening concurrently, when I was 19, I interned at Yes after my sophomore year in the summer. And I was just like, I am going to gobble up any opportunity I get. So I was like just absolutely obsessed with transcribing tape as best as I could, as fast as I
Right?
could, running errands better than anybody,
There
whatever
you
it was.
go.
And
Empty
so I
that
stood
trash
out-
pail.
Exactly. That's it. Whatever we got to do. And I stood out to Jared Boschnak, who's now one of our big bosses at Yes, and Ashley Fugazi. And they both were like, this guy's an unbelievable intern. They got to know me a little bit. And Ashley had gone to Fordham as well. And this opportunity opened up for stats with Michael and for half the home games. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'd never done stats, but sure. And really quickly, Michael was like, well, we need him every home game. So then I started doing that. Then all of a sudden, that the scoreboard people heard me on radio, saw me at Yankee Stadium doing that. We're like, hey, we're going to have this big new scoreboard at the new stadium. Would you want to try out to be the host? And it
What
kind
you
of
say? Was that in '09 when the ballpark opened?
Yeah.
Because I remember when the Mariners came to town, I said, "Holy mackerel, it's one of my guys up there."
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Look at this."
Exactly. Exactly. That's when it was. Yeah.
Oh man.
And then it was just like, my whole mentality was if you crack the door open, I'll kick it down. And so that was it. Just every opportunity, you crush that opportunity and then you get other chances at other things. If you're just worried about the next step, it's never going to come.
And the other thing too, I remember telling you guys, I mean, everybody wants to, most of the guys were in your group are New York area guys,
Yeah.
And I said, the likelihood that you're going to land in New York right out of college, it's a minimal chance, but you beat the hell out of the odds, didn't you?
I did, man. I honestly, I think about that all the time, how fortunate I am, to have been able to stay. I knew this was in my soul and what I wanted to do, and I was ready to go wherever I had to in the country, and I got really lucky, and it was such a blessing because I love New York. I love being close to my family. I love the teams that I'm associated with, the Nets and the Yankees, who I get to do games, for. So, and then obviously, it makes all the national travel easier too, to have 3 airports to choose from. So it's
amen, brother. That's exactly right. That's
it
exactly
all works
right.
out.
Well, it was great. It's nice to hear some of the things that like Marty Glickman told me when I was coming up.
Yeah.
And guys that I used to, when I was a writer, I would see, Enberg and Charlie Jones, and I would pick their brains and everything. So, I carried that with me, and I passed, that you absorbed that, passed it on you, and I'm sure you are currently passing it on to other guys. But I like your inspiration and, the fortitude to just stick with. And I like the fact that it's like the John Fogerty song, Put Me in Coach. I mean, that's what you live that life.
Yeah, because look, the reality is we know that the opportunities can come in all different ways, and I feel like the parents I had and the way I was always told, you can do anything you want, like growing up, I was basically, I never had the mentality of oh, I have to prove someone wrong. I always had the mentality of I want to prove these people right, who believe in me.
A good positive attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And who have set up, I was given, amazing privilege and an incredible opportunity to succeed and do what I love. And once that doors cracked open for you, then it's on you to do the work and to take advantage of those opportunities. And that was my mentality, and I had that gratitude. And I also felt like when we were in those workshops, I'm going to be as present as possible, because I have legends of the industry here who are spending their time and teaching us. And I still, to this day, there's little things I still to this day that are at the foundation of the pillars of broadcasting philosophy or life advice that I take with me, whether it was the example I used with you earlier, or what you would always talk about, how the audience needs to feel like there's no place you'd rather be. They have
You
to
bet.
feel the
That's
joy of
exactly
what,
right.
and I always feel that when I listen to you. Or Mike Breen, this is like a little thing he taught me once, but like about when I was in college, but about like after a call, a punctuation of a call, like hit the score if the score is like a big moment, then round out the individualized call. So if it's like whatever, Kyrie for 3, it's good, gives the Mavs the lead, oh, Kyrie Irving, rather than the Kyrie Irving before the score, and that was like a little thing. But I still remember him telling me that at 20 years old. Or Ian Eagle, like, hey, in our business, you can't have an off night. Like, it's just
Tell me about it.
right. Like, like,
and it's gonna happen. And I told you guys, I said
Yeah.
it's gonna happen too.
Yes,
It's
yes.
gonna happen.
Yes. But if you go in thinking like, oh, I can mail this one in, or like this,
No.
you just can't do it. So yeah, so like all those things and those experiences and listening, I feel so grateful that I had exposure to that at such a young age, because I feel like it really accelerated the learning curve, and those lessons still stick with me.
Ryan, I'm an entrepreneur, so I didn't go into your guys' profession, but I've soaked up a world of knowledge from my dad for many, many years, obviously from the beginning. And I can't tell you, I can picture right now driving back from the Poconos where we had a country house, hearing, any game. This happened frequently. Could have been on the couch. My dad's like, time it, score. Time it. What's the?
Yep. That
But an announcer didn't give the time and the score. So
that it's so funny, because that's the number one thing, right? Like number one thing. And I remember one time I had someone say to me, like, I think you're saying the time and the score too much. And I was like, ooh, you're going to have to find a new job sometime soon. Like, because like, if you think I'm saying time and score too much, you don't understand the job of the announcer. Yeah, and that was right. Like those fundamentals are drilled in. Even something like court geography, like Chris Carino taught me court geography growing up. Like he's the one who said, hey, this is the wing, this is the elbow. You got to identify this. What are some other words for wing? What are some other words for, top of the key? All that stuff. Like those little things that make a difference.
And where'd he get it from? Marty. We all
Yes,
got it from
exactly.
Marty Blakeman.
Dad, foul line extended when you call basketball games.
Yep.
You're always
Right.
calling that out. And then when you do football games, you did for 10, 20 years, a hash mark. I always remember right hash, left hash. You'd be very specific about that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marty said, tell everything you see, smell, hear. I mean, it was just tremendous. Hey, Ryan, how about your dad worked in the NFL, VP of Labor Relations. So you've been exposed to sports your entire life, right?
Yeah, I have. He literally got the job at the NFL a month before I was born.
Oh,
And then he just retired a few years ago. So he spent 34 years there. He was one of the architects of the salary cap and free agency in the NFL. And
one of the reasons why the NFL is just kicking everybody's butt too.
That's right. And for me, it was incredible because I really did grow up in that environment. So I was around, like I would go to Super Bowls as a kid and meet, the owners and the coaches and the players. And it definitely gave me a level of comfort in those settings. Plus, I just thought it was so cool.
I would hope.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny. I was, we're in Kansas City and I was watching these little kids run up to try and get autographs the other day. And they were, or this morning actually. And I was watching them kind of with their book, like they were going up to Booney to try and grab his autograph. And I was thinking about how my dad, even though at times his bosses were like, you really can't do that. Like he would have my sister and I, he'd be like, hey, this is where everyone's staying. Like, it's okay. We're going to go down here. You'll be able to get like these players' autographs or whatever.
Oh man, you got first world treatment there, pal.
Yeah, I did. So I would go there and I would get like, I'm at the Super Bowl and all the players who aren't playing still go to the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just getting, so I have all these, football signed by so many greats throughout the years who I would go up to and talk with and get their autographs at different events.
Ryan, so Hackley, I went to Riverdale.
Yeah.
Fathers in sports doing great things. I had a very different experience though. Knicks. I grew up in MSG. My dad was doing pregame, postgame, and I grew up around all the guys I idolized, Patrick Ewing and et cetera and so on. And my dad would be like, I wanted to get autographs. My dad was like, no, be cool. No. Be cool.
It's funny. That's like, that's usually the way, like even now, like someone was saying to me recently, like, oh, like, cause we moved into our new house about a year and a half ago. And so my office is pretty much finished, but I still want a couple things like on the wall behind me. And like, what I really would love is to get like some autographed jerseys from people who I've done games of, I've covered. And Dave, it's because you've done it so long. Like you eventually do have the kind of relationships where like you wouldn't feel weird asking that to certain people.
Certain people.
Certain people. But like, there's still something about it where I'm like, I got to wait till this person retires. Like, I can't do it until I just can't do it until they retire. Like that jersey will go up there in 10 years or whatever it is. Like, because it's ingrained, when you're in the clubhouse or you're doing those things, you just don't ask, So I almost went the opposite way where I grew up like gobbling up all the autographs and that. And now I'm like, no, we're not doing that until later on. Until either I'm not doing it or the player's like not playing anymore.
Oh man, when I was doing the Knicks, Jarrett and Jordy would come to. I can remember that song. We are New York, and we love basketball. We're gonna take. And Jordy would sleep through that as an infant. We'd bring him to the ball games.
That's great.
Yeah, unbelievable. Give me some thoughts on the challenges and the rewards for you. You do Yankees, you do Nets, and not only, and you're in your home area too.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how that factors in. What's the fan base reaction? And I just did something I told you guys not to do. Ask two questions in one. So this is the first question. The challenges and the rewards.
I mean, I think the rewards are that you are a part of the sports consciousness of the people in your lives.
Here.
So most of the people in my orbit, in my real life, are Yankees fans. And so
that's helpful. That would have been difficult had they been,
yes,
Mets or Red Sox fans or
exactly
Phillies fans.
And so, when I do these games, it feels like I get to share something with them that they're already interested in and love. And I love that, and it's cool for them. And it's cool for me to be able to share that. So that I love. And I think, I think the only thing, or the thing that would be a challenge at times, is when you really know teams well and you also care about them winning and losing, how you accurately tell their struggles, but when they are struggling, but in a way that's doesn't get into kind of not fandom, but like where you as a fan, you can be more gratuitous with the way you criticize, right? And also because it tugs on the emotional strings, there can be a little bit more like zing behind it. And so as a broadcaster, but someone who also like is very aware of everything because you're in the area, you've known the teams, right? Like how do you...
they're paying you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. How do you make sure you're being journalistically fair, but also not being gratuitous in your criticism? And I honestly think like this year with the Nets, it was actually a good challenge for me because they were awful at the end of the year. Like,
they're done that, man.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, and we had these quite a few years in a row of like first kind of building an exciting new culture under Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson and becoming a playoff team, then getting these stars in where you felt like you were a championship contender. Yeah. To all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what are you hanging your hat on? It was a good challenge for me to be like, oh yeah, okay, this is where we get more into like the chemistry I have with Sarah Kustok and like our personality.
One of my favorites people.
She's amazing. She's amazing, as you know. And then Frank DeGrace who's as good as there is as a producer. Like,
I remember Frank when he was an intern at the Garden in mid '80s.
see? Yes, he's filling in for Troy doing this series out in Kansas City right now.
Say hello for me.
I will. But so like that was a challenge for me because it's like, okay, I can't sit here and act like this is good, what's going on with the Nets. Also, I don't want to sit here and, beat a dead horse over and over again. Everybody knows this team is struggling.
Yeah,
you can't
go over like Bombay doors open and just nukes every night. You just can't do it. You got to find something positive, and even if it's in the other team, you want to get into your storytelling, correct?
Yes, exactly. And that's what I did. I got into our personality and our storytelling. And instead of like kind of the emotion I might feel if they were trying to contend when they would like give up a 10-0 run and there's a couple bad turnovers, instead I'm like, you know what? We don't need to dive into that in a way that's, overly critical. We can just say what's happening and not like continue to expound upon it. So that can be a challenge, but I actually enjoyed that challenge.
Okay. So, and the flip side, you got the Yankees, they're rolling. So now you got so much to talk about. How do you catalog all that stuff? I mean, you could spend 20 minutes on like 10 different topics.
You know what's interesting though, Dave? Do you find I feel like the pitch clock has changed the way we broadcast baseball?
Without a doubt.
Right?
You don't get into these long, like Mr. Scully, he would have had, if he were still with us and still working. Somebody said, no, Vince Scully couldn't adapt. I said, if anybody was going to adapt, it would have been Vince Scully. Come on.
Yeah.
May his memory be a blessing. But you got to get to the point. You almost have to, sometimes I do the punchline and then fill in the blanks.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to just kind of basically get into Aaron Boone talking about Carlos Rodon being back on this mound in Kansas City, where his season ended last year, where he gave up 8 runs without recording an out. And it was kind of the exclamation point to his miserable first year with the Yankees, how different things are this year. And I was just asking Booney before the game, what's the thing that stands out most to you about Rodon now in this moment versus when he was here last? And he gave it a great answer about just like his ability to truly only focus on whatever the day's work is, even on his like non-pitching days. And he's just realized with his talent, if he goes all in on that, he's giving himself an outstanding chance to succeed, and that's all that matters. And
that's a good lesson for everybody, man.
100%. And so anyway, I'm trying to get into it. All of a sudden, boom, out. Now we have a promo. Now it's not even that big a story. It's just like a point, But all of a sudden, 2 outs and a promo happened in the middle of me trying to make what basically is like a 3-sentence point. And it's also because now in today's baseball, before getting in promos and reads or whatever, it was easy as heck on TV because you had these long innings, so much dead time to be able. Now it's like you got it, boom, 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 boom to get it in, which I think is fun because it moves, right? It's honestly, I mean, you do way more baseball games than me, Dave. I feel like it's made that sport way more livable.
Oh,
right?
Good Lord, no question about it.
But it changes how we broadcast, so it's a little less storytelling, a little more condensed storytelling.
I take what maybe had been a story like this. I take it down to this.
Yeah. Right.
Get to the point. Fill in a blank. Low ball 2.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and even sometimes like Shaq has this great Justin Shackle, who we were referring to before. He's doing sideline for this series with us, and he has this great story about Trevino and kind of like the homework he does, and I'm like, let's make sure we get this in, whatever. But like in the past, you'd be able to just kind of float into it at some point during the game. Now I'm like, hey, I got to tell Frank in between innings in the break, like, hey, let's be intentional about coming out here with this story, to tell it. But to your broader point, Dave, it is nice when the team's winning, right? Because you just have so many more stories you want to tell. So whether it's Rodon's comeback or it's Soto's professionalism or it's Judge's historic, last 6 weeks, you want to, these are things people want to hear. Like yesterday, I was even talking with Anthony Volpe about just, biggest difference year 1 to year 2, and just all those things, trying to continue to paint the picture for the audience as they go on this 5-6 month ride with these guys.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a common theme. You mentioned Ronald's comeback, advice that you got from my dad back in the day, and imparted on the speech that you gave at the graduation speech. There's like a Ryan Holiday sort of stoic through line with all of the success that you guys have had, athletes have. What else do you notice, I guess, in that sense, as far as what's propelled people towards their success?
Well, what's so funny about that, Jared, is I literally, at the end of my commencement address, I used a Marcus Aurelius quote. Speaking of Stoicism, the god of it, yeah, and it's love the hand that fate deals you and play it as your own. And I love that quote because no matter how much success we have, and I've had an incredibly charmed career up till this point. Even within that, I one of the things I told, and don't worry, there was a lot of humor in this speech as well. But one of the stories I told was like when I lost my radio show. Here I was. I thought like my career's going great. My play-by-play starting to take off. I'm hosting on ESPN Radio in New York. I have this midday show, and I'm just like, I'm 28. Like I'm making more money than I ever thought I was going to make at that point. Right? I'm having more success than I thought I was going to have at that point. And all of a sudden, I'm told, hey, if you want to stay on the radio, you have to move to 7 p.m. It's like, well, I can't do that. Like that conflicts with game times. I can't do that. But like that was a huge portion of my income. What am I going to do? And just kind of that point. But what did it end up doing? Well, of course, it ended up being the greatest thing ever for my play-by-play. Yeah, exactly. And so trying to like the way I try and frame things. And granted, look, there are really, this is obviously like incredible traumas go in a separate bucket. I want to be clear about that. But we're talking about just the kind of different setbacks that you can have within the course of your life that are, that feel like losses, but turn out to be wins. And I always feel like the quicker you can shift your mindset, from like, why did this happen to me to why did this happen for me?
Yep.
The better off you're going to be. And that's what I try and do, with anything that I experience in my career is it's like, hey, this seems like it was a setback. No, what it really was setting you on the path you're meant to be on. Yeah. And the quicker you can adapt that mentality, the more likely it's going to happen, right? That way. So you're when you said you were drawing out the Stoicism thread, Jared, that makes me happy because that's exactly what I would want kind of my philosophy to sound like, because it definitely is essential. Like I love reading Ryan Holiday. I love reading Marcus Aurelius, and I do just feel, and I also just try and be positive. And I think there's something about that, like that's with Stoicism, where it's like, hey, like this happened, but now it's like my choice how to react to it. Yeah, and if I this place of seeing it as something for me, which to me is like finding the positive, then it can serve me.
Yeah, there's an interesting Michael Singer book. It sounds like, I don't know if you're into his stuff.
I've read his books.
Okay, yeah. So I figured we'd have a similar mind. That pairs super well with the Stoicism philosophy of retreating into sort of your consciousness and being able to realize.
Which Singer book? Because I've read what's it called again? It's
Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul.
And
Untethered Soul. And then there's another one that's like the practice of the untethered soul or something like that. Yep. Like I love Untethered Soul though. I love it.
I love the idea of just, the change of mindset when how this is happening for me. And then combining that with retreating into just realizing you're the consciousness. You're not the thought that might be a negative self-talk, or you're not the thing that someone's telling you'd be doing differently or you're doing wrong. You're just the one who witnesses.
Yes, you're the observer of the thought, not the thought itself.
There you go. Yeah. See, that's why you had that one.
Amen. No, we're on the same page with it. Yeah. I think we have the same reading list. It definitely like
I think so.
And I don't know how you feel when I read that kind of stuff, guys. Like, and I don't know how you feel, Jared, but like I just feel lighter.
Yeah,
like
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And
more empowered. I feel like more powerful. Because you're prepared to just take things in a way that's more conducive to your success and positive energy.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's carried a long way. Hey, let me shift gears here for a second. We're talking about the Yankees, talking about the Nets. Ryan Ruocco with us here on the Hey Now podcast. Women's sports, you're right out front, man. And I remember, I think before I heard you do Yankee stuff, I heard you all over what the women's NCAA tournament, and you've had some great calls there. You've been a strong advocate for women's college hoops and pro hoops. Let's talk about that for a little bit. What's your stand on what's happening with the women's game right now?
It's such a wonderful time for the game because we're seeing, the kind of the attention and the growth that all of us in it have known it's deserved for so long. And this is my 12th year doing the WNBA. I've done, amazing, right? I've done the last 4 women's Final Fours as well. I just love it so much. Like, one thing that I think that drew me in right away, besides working with Rebecca Lobo and Holly Rowe, which was just instantly, I was like, oh my gosh, these are the most amazing teammates. I could work with them forever. The other thing that drew me in right away was how the women of the W understood we're all in this together and growing the league. And so immediately you feel like you're a part of something rather than just covering something.
Right.
And that increased my investment even more in what I was doing. And then the basketball I've known was great for a really long time. The women are just, they're so dynamic, beyond just what they do on the court. They're these smart, they cut through, they're smart. They're like intelligent about all different world issues, societally,
I like that.
Sociologically. Yeah, they can just touch.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you started, you said 12 years ago. I'm curious about the level of play from your first 3 years to now. I mean, I don't follow it, I admit it, but when I have enjoyed the heck out of the Final Four.
Yeah, it's been so fun.
And try to catch some of the pros of the W.
Yeah.
But the level of play, how much has it risen over these last 10, 11 years?
I think a lot. The skill,
Yeah.
and the just like baseline talent has and athleticism has risen a lot. Now, like the tippy top of the top, like I think like those those gritty, like just total superstar competitors. I think that actually may have been a little higher in the past. Like when you're talking about we're watching a Diana Taurasi, a Maya Moore, a Candace Parker, a Tamika Catchings,
Love Tamika Catchings. Oh my God.
She's amazing. And this next generation is gonna build those level of stars. We've had kind of a gap where we haven't necessarily had that level of superstar coming into the draft until now. Kind of like the transcendent generational type talent. Then there's a lot of other really great players that are coming or are here as well. But the overall skill, it's unbelievable. The different skill now, even just shooting threes off the dribble, the way that's evolved.
Joe Buck, who's also a son of a great, so he gets roasted. I'm just a completely other topic, but I'm just curious since you bring it up. How do you guys feel about your colleagues when they get, killed on social media? And you're like, what the heck? What are people thinking?
I don't get it. I'm a big fan of Joe Buck. He's
amazing.
He's having a great career. All the Super Bowls, all the World Series. He's a good dude. He does a nice job. He works well with his partners. What's the beef?
To me, he's as good as there is. And that almost is comforting in some ways because I'm like, hey, if you can criticize Joe Buck, then all of us can get it.
It's funny you say that. You know why? Because my first year when I'm in Seattle, and Dave Niehaus, God rest his soul, was still very much with us. And Jarrett, in the first month or two, I'm the new guy, the black guy coming in from the East Coast, the Pacific Northwest. And Jarrett goes, "Hey, Dad, you're getting freaking killed on Twitter." I said, I saw roasting you, man. and I said, well, I've seen a couple of people take shots at Mr. Scully. So I said, if Mr. Scully can take a few hours, I can take a few hours.
Yeah, it's so true. And you know what it is, and it really speaks to, and this is a more broad philosophical question we don't spend a ton of time on, but just to make this point, it's about the medium. It's not about the people. Even when people say we're so divided or whatever, it's hey, when you really talk to someone in person, you usually don't feel that way, right? Even if there's something you disagree about, like usually you can have some sort of conversation where there's exceptions. Let's be clear, there are exceptions, but
Thank you.
like yeah. But like usually in life, like even with the Caitlin Clark stuff, right? It's like it, there's almost become like this whole like narrative around WNBA veterans that was just the spawn of like a social media idea rather than any evidence itself. And it's kind of like just a commentary on how we consume media rather than anything about the content, because there's nothing really there. There's nothing really there. There's nothing really for people to hold their hat on when they talk about like, oh, the veterans are jealous of Caitlin. I'm like, okay, but like, what makes you think that? And it's like, well, and it's just like you're just being fed that over and over and over again. And this is kind of the same thing, right? Like the medium invites sharp, extreme reactions and then upregulates them and makes those the things that are circulated more and populated more, and then
100%.
also buries you in a silo of what you already believe, right? Like so
No
you
doubt.
become more and more dug into it. So it's like you're getting like all this sort of affirmation about like this like thought you had that now has been reinforced over and over and over again. And anyway, just to say, like I've just kind of realized, like, like, yeah, like if someone's going to like tweet something nasty at Dave or me during a game, like, is there a part of me that's like, what kind of person are you to do this? Like, yeah. But then I also realized, like, they're just like, they're having like an emotional moment for a split second, and they happen to have a vessel to send that out,
And there's the native language of each of these platforms too, where Twitter is different from Reddit, and sharp witticism versus like biting, incendiary comments. And I feel like your point is very on the money as far as an emotional reaction, and then which medium might you be inside of also is
right, because the same people who are on Twitter may also be on Instagram, but on Instagram they're not going to you're not going to get the same kind of like sharp commentary the way you do on Twitter, right? That in itself tells you it's about the medium.
Let's talk about your involvement with Sue Bird in the clutch. What a great player, New York girl. I remember interviewing her when she was a senior in high school, and man, international fame, renowned. She's just one of the biggest names here in Seattle. Tell me, how did you get involved, and what was your involvement in that?
Sue and I just kind of naturally connected back in 2013 or 2014. It was either year one or year two when I started doing the WNBA.
Right.
We hung out at an all-star event, and she happened to be going to my favorite restaurant in New York, Mark Forgione. Like later that week, she was going to be going for the first time, and I was like, oh, amazing! Like we started talking New York restaurants, whatever. I was like, I'll set you up, whatever. So we end up like connecting, becoming good friends. Friendship just grows over the years, and to the point where she became one of my closest friends, and is one of my closest friends now. And a few years ago, I guess it was in 2020, I'm talking with my buddy Aaron Bergman, who has a production company called Black Bar Mitzvah with Jay Ellis, who I don't know if you're familiar with Jay, but Jay is an actor who was the male lead on Insecure. He played on HBO. He played Lawrence. And their whole idea was like to take worlds that people think they know and flip them on their axis and show like a different perspective. So anyway, Aaron and I have always been like, oh, it'd be fun to work together, whatever. And like Aaron was like, who's like someone in sports we could do a doc on, whatever. And we're like batting back and forth. And he's like, what about Sue? And I was like, Sue would be amazing. Like, I don't know if anyone's done anything on her. I'll ask her. She's like, no one's done anything. I would be interested. She was in the bubble. So Aaron's like, let me check with Jay. Like, Jay's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? No one's done anything. Let's do it. Jay's a huge hoops fan too. And has followed Sue's career forever. He was kind of playing high school ball when she was like, so he always like knew about her. And took a while to develop because, she was in a bubble and it was like harder, so we're just not having the same conversations, whatever. Then she gets hurt. Then she's trying to win a championship, which they did. But anyway, we went on a trip for her 40th right after. And like, it's like the last day of the trip. And I'm like, hey, we got to talk about this doc. And she was like, all right, I'm serious about it. Let's do it. So we have a call with me, Aaron, and Jay. She loves Aaron and Jay, everything about their philosophy and what they pitched. We ended up bringing in a couple other producing partners, Jigsaw, which is Alex Gibney, who's won an Oscar as a director, his production company, and then Waffle Iron, which is the production arm of Nike. We followed her for what we thought was going to be her final season in 2021. And then turns out she comes back for another season. So we followed her again. And so it's a feature doc about her entire career, but with like originally we were going to shoot a verite doc where we're just going to follow her for the couple of years and kind of hone in on those seasons. And is she going to leave? Isn't she? And that's like woven into the career story. And then also how Sue's journey also mirrors the rise of women's basketball and its popularity in our country, you know, and even the way you see how the women of this league were marketed early on when Sue was there versus the place we are in now. And that journey as well. And so the doc, which is now out on Netflix, kind of gets into all of that. And with Sue, who is, I think, one of the greatest winners in the history of American sports.
No doubt
and
about it.
just like, she's so cool. She's just so cool. She's just like an awesome person. So I think you get a little bit of all that, plus her relationship with Megan. And it's really interesting.
What do you hope people take away from your documentary?
What a winner Sue is.
Okay.
And appreciating everything she's accomplished. And then I think also appreciating her journey and the way in which she kind of found herself and her confidence and her voice as a gay woman in this country, and who also navigates the growth of the league when it comes to labor agreements, you know, and who I think has helped move the needle forward for helping young women be comfortable with who they truly are, you know, like even if you just look at Sue's fashion and the way it's evolved and like the things she thought or felt or was pushed to wear when she was first coming into the league being marketed to what she wears now. And like,
what's the difference? What's the difference?
I mean, everything was like very feminine when she first came into the league, and that was kind of what was pushed on them. And, you know, that was never really true or authentic to Sue and her fashion sense and style.
Okay.
And now she, you know, she's always on these different lists as like best dressed, whatever. And everything I think is an expression of who she truly is and how, you know, how she really wants to dress and even her voice and like the comfort with which she can, you know, talk about all different issues, whether it's being a white woman in a predominantly black league and how you really are an advocate for your teammates and your peers, and the different challenges that they face that you don't, or if it's, you know, the next steps of the growth of the league. And even the way she looked at the doc itself was like, part of her motivation for doing it was knowing if she does it, it helps break down the door for the next women's basketball player to do. And that, like, she was Sundance. We premiered at Sundance. I don't think a female athlete's doc had ever world premiere at Sundance, but definitely no female basketball player's doc had ever world premiered at Sundance like that. And the ovation, we sold out like all the theaters, all showings, and the crowds were so engaged and so amazing. And it was just the most rewarding experience. And honestly, it was emotional for all of us who have been in this space of women's basketball for as long as we have. And then also emotional because of the connection we have to Sue, because to see her, like, they do this, like these coffee house conversations. That's kind of like a premiere thing they do at Sundance. And she did it on the Thursday we got there, the Friday morning. And she walks into the room and the entire place gives her a standing ovation as she walks. And, you know, you just feel like, you know, this moment of where, you know, because like the WNBA used to be treated as like this punchline culturally, right? And societally. To see Sue embraced, appreciated, loved the way that she was there just felt like this massive win for the growth of women's basketball that we all took pride in.
It's really neat to hear that the sales went off the chart. I mean, what difficulty did you have, if any?
It was incredibly difficult. And, you know, because you still have a lot of places that pay lip service to the idea of, you know, wanting to tell certain stories, but really what they're doing is covering their ass, you know, and they don't they're not actually, when push comes to shove, they're not actually going to invest. They just don't want to be called out for not,
Right.
So it's like,
So
how can
you felt like certain parties took the meeting
Oh,
just to check the box?
definitely. I mean, we had a network. I'll leave out this specific network, but it's a prominent network. We had a prominent network executive call one of our people on the side and say, no one cares about Sue Bird, no one cares about women's basketball, and it was a woman who was in that position as well, and we met that kind of resistance over and over again throughout the journey. And what was sort of like life imitating art, art imitating life in this case, that was kind of part of Sue's journey, right? Like,
Damn.
and Sue even said this when she got on stage at Sundance. She was like, we were told no one cares, no one wants it. And then we got into, as she said, effing Sundance. Like, and yeah, exactly. And it was like, the reviews have been amazing. We eventually did get this deal. We got a distribution deal pre-Netflix, and then this Netflix deal. Again, like, the financial parameters of it are definitely going to grow for the next woman. Like, there's no doubt. And I think Sue takes pride in knowing like she's helping lay the foundation for that. But I'm so thrilled that we found a way to make it and get it into a prominent place where people can see it. Because
So we're going to go Ryan Ruocco, play-by-play, talk show host, producer.
Yeah, that's right.
Be a producer.
Right. It was so fun too to get to be in that creative place with it. Was really fun. I loved it. What
was your favorite shot that you called as a producer?
I was uniquely positioned to be able to help on this project because I knew the WNBA so well, having done it for a decade plus, right? So I know that landscape. I also know production from, just being on air. And then I'm one of Sue's closest friends, so I have an access to her that other people may not. Right. So there was like a couple moments where it was like, I need, like, we need something, and like we can't get to her. Like, can you? And I'd be like, hey, Sue, producer Ryan has a question for you, not friend Ryan. Like, and so like one of the things we navigated was when we have all this amazing footage, which a lot of it, of course, gets left on the cutting room floor. But we have all this amazing footage that Sue shot when she was in Japan for the Olympics, and it was during COVID, so we couldn't get a camera in there other than to shoot her bus walking in. We couldn't do anything because of their restrictions. So we had Sue shoot all this stuff herself, like, even like putting on her jersey for the final game of her career. She's about to go win a 5th gold medal. Like, and so helping navigate some of that was pretty cool to get to be a part of.
Wow. Tell us about R2C2, because I remember seeing, and I coached you guys a few times. You and CC Sabathia.
Yeah.
Great dude. Going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And you guys definitely had some fun. And one of the questions that we talked about with Jarrett and the team, we were talking about how you spawned other cats still active or recently retired. They get into the business.
Yeah, I think you had kind of like JJ started to do a podcast, then Richard and Channing with Road Tripping, and then us, like right all around the same time. I think those two came slightly before us, and then us, and then I think like we were the first ones to do it in baseball.
Boy, ain't that the truth? Yeah, we need more of that in baseball.
And I think that was part, like, when I got out of talk show hosting, because I never loved it. Like, I liked reacting to games. I liked connecting to the audience, but I never liked making mountains out of molehills.
That's the same. It's interesting. We had the same. Iron Eagle and I had the same conversation 30-some years.
Yeah, all of us who are play-by-play
and I like what I'm doing here.
But,
hey, now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying.
Yeah. But that's different. But that's different, right? Podcast is different. Hey, now is different than you like having to be on the daily beat of like,
True,
we gotta make a controversy out of something, And
there's the number to call, 917.
Yeah, right, exactly. and because you did it for years in New York. And so Cece was like, we always used to talk about in the clubhouse, we should do something together. And he hit me up and he was like, hey, cuz, I think it's time for us to do this. And I was like, well, okay, but like, I'm not doing anything where we're like talk show hosting, like type, like reacting to the most controversial stories, hot takes. Like, he's like, I don't want that either, man. He's like, I want us to like just be us and like tell people stories and help people
There you
show
go.
their true personalities. And I'm like, great. And that's kind of what it was. It was like a vessel for these baseball players mostly, but then other figures in sports as well, to just be able to show their personalities in a setting that was comfortable and credentialed and talk about different things. And then, yeah, we would end up making headlines at different times because we were naturally reacting to something that happened, whether it was a Yankees playoff loss or whatever. But we were never manufacturing something. And so it just felt fun and authentic. And we had some really memorable conversations. And then once CC retired, it got harder because his schedule actually got busier despite being retired. And we weren't in the same place as much anymore.
Yeah.
And then I was getting more play-by-play. Plus, I have my daughter. And
Congratulations.
thank you, man. Thank you.
How old is she now?
She's 2.5. We realized schedule-wise that it just was hard for us to have our hearts in it the way we had the
Gotcha.
first few years. So we were like, hey, no, there was no hard feelings, no nothing, but we just decided to wind it down and call it a day. But C is, me and him are still super close, and our relationship is wonderful. And we leave the door open. We own our RSS feed, so if we ever wanted to do something down the road, we could.
Before we wrap this up, give me a couple of moments, broadcast moments that you're, maybe some calls that you're really, I mean, you're proud of just about everything you do, but I mean, there's a couple of calls that jump out at you.
Judge's home run that almost left the stadium in Seattle.
Yeah. I remember. Yes. I remember that
like
well, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that was, it was amazing. And that was one that I think really endeared me to the Yankee fan base. And it was just so cool, and one that Aaron and I still joke about to this day. Hicks's catch in Minnesota in 2019 to end the wild extra inning game, win in the gap with the bases loaded, where if he doesn't make the catch, they lose. Instead, he makes the catch, they win by 2 after they had there was 5 consecutive half innings with lead changes in the 8th inning or later for the first time in baseball history. It was just an amazing game, 5.5 hours. I'd say calling the Nets had an amazing comeback in Sacramento a few years ago, biggest comeback in franchise history. They were down 28 in the game, and I think they were down 25 at the end of 3. And D'Angelo Russell went nuts. He scored 27 in the 4th.
That was an electric finish.
Remember that game? It was nuts. Yeah. And then there's a lot of moments over the last couple of years with Caitlin, and I got to call her 3,000th point this year, and I had this call where I said history in flight, as she took the shot.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then the one tagline I have is "You bet," and when it went in, I hit it with "You bet," and it was I could only use that history in flight once, so she kind of had to make the shot. If she missed it, I wasn't gonna. Next time she takes it, say history in flight again. So that was one of my favorites. And then Caitlin 2 years ago in the Sweet 16, in the semifinal game against South Carolina, I had this line at the end where I said, the mythical mastery of Caitlin Clark continues.
Nice.
And I love that because I love alliteration. I just love it.
Absolutely. You were paying attention back in those comp courses, weren't you?
Amen. So those are some of my faves. And just getting to document women's hoops, especially over the last couple of years, it's just been amazing. Whether it was, I kind of felt like the Chicago Sky winning it against Phoenix a couple years ago in the W finals felt like this awesome moment, into what Vegas did, into Vegas, New York, into, what's happened in the Final Four the last 2 years with Iowa and their runs, and then LSU beating Iowa, and then South Carolina beating Iowa. All those games have moments where I just, you Dave, the feeling where you're just I love what I do.
No question. It's a happy drive home. You kidding me? You bet. Where'd you get that from?
It was totally organic. I think I was trying to think of something that could be my own, and nothing felt natural really. And then I realized that one of the things I like to do on TV is anticipate when someone has it going, playing into that. Like, so another thing I'll say sometimes is like, again, like if someone's hit a bunch of threes in a row,
Gotcha.
like Clark again, something like
Right,
that.
I've heard that, right?
So like, I kind of realized like there was this like expectation of like, is it going to go in? Like, you bet. Like, and then I just was like, oh, I like that. I think that's good. And I would use it just kind of like, 6, 7, 8 times a game. And then Tim Corrigan produces the NBA Finals, has been the coordinating producer for the NBA for us for ESPN for a very long time, and he just has an incredible ear and eye. And he called me up one day. He's like, you bet's a good call. He was like, it's a really good call. I like it. He's like, use it more sparingly. Instead of using it 8 times a game, make it stand out. It doesn't have to be like the game winner, but like use it in those critical moments. So like punctuating a run or
Absolutely.
somebody's red hot or a game winner. And I was like, and it changed my philosophy around it. And so now that's how I use it. Like it could be the first quarter, but it has to be a significant moment, and
I've noticed you use that like in a 7-0 run. You do a tremendous job of like amping the moment up. It feels bigger the way the way you call it. And I noticed to punctuate the 7-0 run, I noticed that's where you often use it.
This analogy, I don't know when I came up with it, but at some point I did, and I love it for TV play-by-play. And it's like the score to a movie where, you see the pictures, but we're helping the moment come to life. Mm-hmm. So like when you see that run, you also want to feel that run. Same way this is the example I always use, but if you're watching Jaws and you see the shark, but you heard a flowery harp instead of the dun-dun-dun, you'd be like, is this a friendly shark? I don't get it. Well,
a cartoon.
If Aaron Judge hits a walk-off grand slam, and I'm like, Judge, deep to left, that's gone. Grand slam. You're like, well, did it not count? You want
well, if there had been the opponent, I know that was, I've been on both ends of that. So
right.
It's a big difference when it goes against you. Long drive.
So just trying to make the moments come to life. Whether it's a run or a game winner or whatever it might be.
I would love to know, what is your stance? Because this is something that's so hot button amongst fans. Should announcers talk about or not say that, the announcer no-hitter jinx? So I'd love for both of you guys, I'd just love to hear your stance on this.
I broadcasted Domingo Germán's perfect game last year, which was that when you asked me my favorite calls, that is the top of the list. Like that moment is number one. It was unbelievable. And I didn't say perfect game. I didn't say the word perfect until the final out. And when I was in the middle of it, I was in the 5th inning, or it was after the 5th inning, and I hadn't said it yet. And I was like, do I try and do this without saying it? And what's funny is, now I know Dave's philosophy is different than this, but at one point when I was younger, David said to me like, hey, he was kind of talking about our class, and he was just saying like, you could be creative, like, and not say it. And like, here's the different ways you'd say it without saying it, and the audience would still know. And so in my mind, as I was doing it, I was like, hey, Dave Sims, one of my favorite all-time play-by-play guys, he told me there's a path here where you can do this. And it validated me in my mind trying to do it that way. What's funny is we ended up talking like 2 days later. He's like, you got to say it. What are you doing? I was like, Dave, I was taking your advice. But
I remember that,
most times you got to say it because you got to let the audience know so that they don't go away or so that they come back or whatever.
To that point.
Yeah.
I had the Umber Perfecto against us. I had the Felix Perfecto against Tampa Bay. Prior to that happening, we're in Chicago to play the White Sox. Doug Fister had gone into the 7th with a no-no, and I had said it a bunch of times. I didn't care. And we'd done this. I'd done that my first year, Matsuzaka, somebody's throwing a no-no. So we're at the cage, or I'm sitting in the dugout, and Tim McCarver comes in because he's got the network game the next day. He comes up to me and says, hey, Dave, how are you doing? Hey, blah, 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 that whole thing. Hey, what's this I hear you talking about calling it a no-hitter, And I'm like, wait a minute, Tim McCarver, I was a catcher in high school. He and Joe Torre were my guys. And I'm like, now I get my backup. I said, what are you talking about? He says, no, just breaking your balls. He says, let me tell you. He goes, the other day there was another instance where he had come in from doing a game. He turns on a TV.
and the game's rolling along. And then about the ninth inning, here's the announcer say, so-and-so's throwing a no-hitter. He said, if I'd known that back in the sixth, I'd have sat my ass down and watched the show.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. And when I was calling the Umber Perfecto, once it got to like the fifth inning, I said, hey, he's perfect through five. Back with more after this. When Felix was going, he's got a no-hitter, a perfect game in the sixth inning. He's a step away from immortality. And I kept calling it. And I didn't give it. And people give me grief. They still, some of them give me grief for that. And I know I called Michael K one time. I saw that he was getting beaten up on. I said, hey, man,
he does.
Just keep doing what you do. And Marty, Vin, Marty Brenneman. Damn it, David, call what you see.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's the thing. So it's funny, Jared, because like I did it without saying it, but that's not like my philosophy on it, if that makes sense.
Think so, yeah.
My philosophy is say it. I just almost took it as like, it was like a creative challenge. And I was like, can I? And I had said to myself, I was like, if there's a moment where I feel like I'm not able to express what's happening without saying it, then I'm bagging this, but let me see. And then I was like, okay, because I was saying like 18 up, 18 down.
I've said that, right?
Space, like he's unblemished. I was using all these different words.
But here's the thing. My thought on that, why make the audience work? It's a freaking perfect game.
Maybe Domingo wouldn't have thrown it if I would have said the word perfect. We'll never know.
I'm just the door open. Oh, man, that's good stuff. Hey, Ryan, I appreciate you giving us some time, man. We enjoyed the heck out of it. This has been a blast. Really enjoyed it.
Anything for the Sims family always. Thank you always for, the guiding light you've been in my career, Dave. I so appreciate it. And there's so many times throughout my life from the time I was 19 to now, and I know it'll extend far beyond that, where I think back to either specific things you told me listening to my tape or industry things or life advice that's been helpful. So, you have a long
appreciate it.
You have a long list of people whose lives you impacted when you came and did those workshops. So thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Ryan Ruocco, thanks, my man, for your time. Really appreciate it. And Jared and Jordy, I told you that this young guy, he knows what he's doing. You've seen him on the WNBA coverage. One of the bright young sportscasters we have on the scene.
I thought it was super cool how he invoked a quote from you during the commencement speech at Hackley, which was a rival school to Riverdale, where Jordan and I went to school. And, just a guy who's got it all together, professional and inspirational and a stoic like me. So enjoyed the chat.
That was good repartee you guys had. For Jared and Jordan Sims, I'm Dave Sims. See you next week here on the Hey Now podcast.